Please welcome to the stage Executive Vice President and Chief People, Policy and Purpose Officer at Cisco, Ms. Francine Katsoudas, in a conversation with Semafor Editor-at-Large, Steve Clemons.
Fran, thank you so much for it. So for transparency, Fran and Cisco, of course, are important supporters of today's program, and we want to disclose that. But she has no idea what questions I'm about to ask her. So, but I do want to start out and sort of talk about the fact that I know that Cisco is operating in 40 countries in Africa. Right. You oversee all of Cisco's investments in Africa. In addition to the many other roles you have, you're a member of the President's Advisory Council on Doing Business in Africa. And the thing that has sort of become so clear to me today at today's forum, listening to the stories, is how many blind spots I have as an American looking at Africa's strengths and capabilities. And I'm just interested in the digital wired world that you're helping to bring to Africa. What are they doing that's more innovative than what we're doing?
So it's a great question, and there's so much, and there's beautiful examples as it relates to access to healthcare. I think there's great examples around education that are happening right now. My very first trip to Africa, I have a really funny story. There was a technologist that I met, and he was using Cisco tech to help a bakery. And here's what he was doing.
Where was this at? Which country?
This was in South Africa.
Okay.
And he would let the bakers know when they were about to have an increase in traffic in front of the bakery. And then the bakers would put pies in the oven. And as people were walking by, they would smell the pies, they'd go in and buy it. And this little breakthrough ended up driving down a reduction of inventory, an increase in sales. And it's a little example of how across Africa, the usage of data, we just heard that about some of the healthcare options are happening right now. And I thought that was a really fun example.
And one of the other things that I think about, with our program at Semafor, we're doing a lot on the U.S. economy, upskilling workers, looking at digital skills, and how do you incentivize, kind of create the right balance. When I think of I honestly like to think of nations in Africa as opposed to Africa, because every country is different and has a different story. So I just want to put that on the table. But as you look at different countries inside Africa that have some of these dimensions of upskills jobs, what are you doing? I know you have the Cisco Networking Academy, NetAcad, but also I'm interested in the credentialing side of it. What kinds of skills create a fluency and a transport credential that people can move from Net Academy to other opportunities?
Yeah, I think we know this around the world. It is critical for all of us to build our digital skills. And I think what we see right now is that in many cases, technology and industries, they're moving faster than people. And so our networking academies basically are training learners on some of the tech skills that really allow them to get their foot in the door from a technology perspective. We do offer certification as well. And certification is so important because when someone is certified in technology, that really helps them to land jobs. At Cisco, we have trained 17.5 million learners over the last 25 years around the globe. And in Africa, we've trained 1.5 million. I'm excited to say that on Wednesday, we will announce our next commitment. But we are absolutely committed to building digital skills. And what it means across Africa, and we heard Ambassador Tai talk about it this morning, is that's how you build capacity. That's how you really build for the future. And what we find is the students that go through the Networking Academy, 90% of them are able to land jobs as they come out of the academy or they go back to school, and both are really great.
I want to ask about what you're doing with women, training, entrepreneurs. And the reason I want to ask it, and I want to just put on the table too, that America can be negligent and derelict in some of these questions as well, of trying to bring into the table, make sure that we have gender equity and whatnot. But how are you trying? And I want to ask this in a sensitive way, because I recently interviewed Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and in her books, as she was sort of talking about African culture and where it is where it is. but she was also talking about the evolution and the change and modernity and kind of coming in. How are you helping to increase the speed of evolution and women's role in Africa?
So I think the first thing is we're putting tremendous focus on this, both for our employees, but the continent more broadly. One of the most diverse sites that we have from a networking academy perspective is actually in Nigeria, which is so exciting. And when you go there, you see the students working to intersect IoT and some agriculture opportunities that we have as well. What we're doing specifically, at Cisco, there is a level of certification that is at the highest level. And when people get this certification, they're really sought after, especially today from a security and cybersecurity perspective, to run the largest networks in the world. And a few years ago, we only had 2 women across Africa that were CCIE certified. Today, we have 70 that are working towards their certification. That is huge.
Wow.
And these 70 women will be a role model for 7,000 more and 70,000 more, et cetera. And they will really break through managing some of the biggest networks in the world.
You know, when President Obama held a U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, I think there was a disappointment. And I don't want to, I mean, you may have been there, so I want to put ideas in your head. But some people thought, it was a great party, but, nothing afterward. Now we've got President Biden doing it. And President Biden has said he's going to make this matter more. You're on an advisory board with him. You're going to get to hang out with him. What advice can you give him about how to make our attention and awareness of Africa more of a consistent theme in this town and not a one-shot deal with we have a lot of parties over a week? And just because, and I ask this with respect to what Cisco has been doing in Africa. You haven't been riding waves up and down. You've got to make it work. And if you're not making money, goodbye, right? So what advice do you have to this town and to the President of the United States to not be, one and done?
Okay, so here's what I would say. When we look at Africa, our purpose at Cisco is to power an inclusive future for all. And you can't power an inclusive future if people don't have access around the globe. And so I would say that what we see more broadly is so many opportunities across Africa to digitize. That process of providing access to healthcare or to education or to job creation is a win for companies from a business perspective and a great thing to do for the world. And I think we have to look at it not as something that we do from time to time, but an investment that we have that will serve our businesses well as we drive towards an inclusive future.
And finally, if there's a social contract on the other side, although they just gave us a little more time, so we can, this is great. Thank you, keep that up. But if they like us. But if you were to look at the African side and give that same bit of advice to African leaders, African civil society, African business groups on how to be more consistent partners, more successful partners, what would you say to them they could do to up their game? Because there is a little bit of a problem of a hiccup where the relationships, particularly economic ones, are not going particularly in the right direction. So how do they turn it around as well? How can we both be partners with each other in a better way?
It's funny because we both win as we have these conversations and partner. I'll give you a couple of really powerful examples. The first was when we were running the networking academies in South Africa a few years ago, the government came to us and basically said, hey, we need more students that are trained up in security. That was a great example where we could take our offerings, pivot to the needs of the business. So I think that conversation is really good. One of the things that we do across Cisco is called the Cisco Edge Centers. And they're basically incubation centers where we bring entrepreneurs in and help them build their scale. And so imagine an office full of technology that allows a new business to really showcase their solutions. And what I find so amazing, Steve, is that we started working with companies 4 years ago that had 1 or 2 employees. They were worried that they were not going to make it. And one of these companies now, he has over 150 employees. He is doing so well. He's helped us now to build a networking academy in Africa as well. And so I think the most important thing is we need to be talking about the needs, the requirements. I think we all have to invest in the digital skills and look for the win-win because it's absolutely there.
And then also another area that we're going to be investing a lot. I'm telling this to our CEO, Justin Smith, who's in the front row. I'm not sure I've cleared it with him. We're going to do a ton of stuff on smart cities. Like we're going to the urban city thing. You got a city in the world, but we're still going to talk to you folks if you're not in cities. But if you're in a city, boy, come hang out with Semafor. So we're going to do smart city and really smart cities is in a way with all, the transfer of data and quantum and AI and all the dimensions and the infrastructure that supports that, all the sum of that should be far greater than all the parts. So I'm just interested in as you look at African cities, how cool are they going to be compared to other cities? I mean, are you going to wire them better than us?
So I will tell you.
You're in charge of Africa, by the way.
I'm a big believer in the leapfrog. And I do think if we focus...
Did you say leapfrog?
In the leapfrog opportunity,
yeah, okay, good.
Absolutely. And we have been working on smart cities for over a decade now. And
I want smarter cities than a decade ago.
Absolutely. And the amazing thing is, I think one of the biggest differences is that smart cities today are so much more inclusive because I think that's one of the requirements of a smart city. I think the technology is absolutely better. But there is such an opportunity to partner. Cisco can't build a smart city alone. We want to do it with Qualcomm. We want to do it with MasterCard. We want to do it with the players in this room. And I think coming together in service of building that leapfrog opportunity is absolutely possible.
Well, Fran Katsoudas, she's the Executive Vice President, Chief People, Policy, and Purpose Officer of Cisco, big portfolio. But she's got the portfolio of investment in Africa, so remember that. And you're trying to tell President Biden on how to do better on Africa,
As
and we
hang out,
appreciate
yes.
that too, and you hang out. So with every, thank you, Fran Katsoudas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.